Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Memches Amud Aleph, starting with Mem Zayin Amud Beis, the very last line on the Amud. The Gemara brings another ramification for the machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and the Chachamim. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri holds when it comes to an ownerless object, it is koine shvisa, whereas the Chachamim are cholik. Says the Gemara Tani Rabbi Chia. We have a situation when you have two cities that are 4,000 amos apart. In between those two cities is a body of water, a pool of water, that is going to then be on both sides of their techum. Exactly in the middle, there is a fish net that separates the two techumim. Says the Gemara. Tani Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia taught in the following brayso, Cherem shebein tchumei Shabbos. If you have a fish net that again is in the middle, in between the two techumim of both cities, tzorich mechitza shel barzel lahafsikoi. He says it requires a mechitza of iron to separate the two. In other words, he says that the waters are not koine shavisa, and therefore they get the 2,000 amos that are going to be the extension of the city. So since the city's borders have 2,000 amos each one, and this meets in the middle, therefore, he says, because the waters are going to be then mixed to both sides, people cannot draw water not from one side or not from the other side, because they are beyond the 2,000 amos of that city. Mechayech alei Rabbi Yosi Barbi Chanina. Rabbi Yosi Barbi Chanina, he smirks, he smiles, he laughs at this halacha. My taima kamechayech. What's the reason why he is smiling, why he's joking and jesting at this halacha? Ilema mishum detani la keRabbi Yochanan ben Nuri lechumra v'iu svir leKerabban lekula. If you want to say because this halacha is taught lechumra, like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, and he himself holds lekula like the Rabban. In other words, that this halacha holds like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, and therefore the din is such that the waters are mixed. They were not koine shvisa, and therefore it is prohibited according to this brayso to go ahead and draw water unless you have a mechitza shel barzel. Whereas he himself holds lekula like the Rabbanon, that say that an ownerless object is not koine shvisa, and therefore those who will draw water will then have their ragle techum. Then mishum desavar lekula man detani lechumra mechayech ale, because somebody who then is teaching lekula, he's going to then laugh, he's going to then jest at the one who holds lechumra, even if he doesn't hold lechumra, but that wouldn't be a reason to jest at that halacha. Ela mishum detanya. Rather, it must be because it says in the following brayso, Naharos hamoishchin umayanos hanoivin harehen keragle kol adam. Those waters that are moving and those mayanos that are gushing forth, they get the ragle kol adam, and therefore, granted they're not koine shvisa, they're going to then be able to then get the ragle kol adam. And so too over here then, this water too should get the ragle kol adam and should be mutter to then draw the water. The Gemara says, maybe these waters are like a lake, whereby the waters, even if they're not stagnant, but nonetheless they're in the confines of the lake, whereby they would be kind of shavisa. Elamishum dektani. Rather, the reason why he jested perhaps is because tzarich mechitza shel barzel afsiko, because he taught in this braysa that you need a mechitza of barzel, of iron, to separate the two waters. Why isn't the fish net that is made out of reeds sufficient? The reason why is because the aili buhumaya, because water will go through. Shel barzel nami aili buhumaya, even if it's going to be an iron mechitza, but water will still then go in between. Let's say the mechitza is not going to be going all the way from top to bottom. There'll be space in between. Says the Gemara, V'dil Mitzorich, if that can't be because V'dil Mitzorich ve'ein lo takana kamar. Maybe he says it needs a mechitza shel barzel, but it's not going to be something that's going to be viable. So that's nothing to jest at. Ella, maybe the reason why he then jested at this halach is bishum de kalhu, because of a leniency. Shehikilu chachamim mayim ki de Rabbi Tavla. Like the chachamim, Rabbi Tavla taught, we can be making when it comes to mechitzas of mayim. The boy mine Rabbi Tavla mirav. Rabbi Tavla asked Rav, mechitza tluya ma. What's the din if you have a mechitza that is tluya, that is not going to be then asar tzvachim, it's hanging in the air? Shetatir bechurba. You have a churba, a ruin that has only partial wall, and it's not complete. It's tluya. Do we say that that's a valid wall or not? We do not allow a mechitza to be materes if it's tluya unless it's coming for mayim. Then we're mekil. And therefore that's why he smirks at such a halacha that was taught, because after all, over here there is makom to be mekil, and therefore you don't need a mechitza shel barzel. A mechitza of the kanim, of the fish net, is sufficient. The Gemara now quotes the next part of the Mishnah. The Mishnah had stated that, in contrast to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, that says a person is koine shvisa even when he is sleeping, the Chachamim argue and say no. And therefore the Chachamim argue and say he has only daled amos. The next part of the Mishnah brought another opinion and stated that Rabbi Eliezer, he holds that he is be'emtzoin. He's in the middle of those daled amos. In other words, the Chachamim hold that he has daled amos in both directions, all directions, which means really he has 8 amos in squared. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer says he's be'emtza, really he's in the middle of those daled amos, which he has 2 amos in every direction. It will be 4 amos squared. Then the Mishnah brings Rabbi Yehuda, who says la'ezer rosh yirtze yelech, with any direction he will want to go, he can go. So ask the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda hainu Tanakama. This that Rabbi Yehuda stated, this seems to be the opinion of the Tanakama, that he can go daled amos in all directions, whichever direction he wants to begin to take. Omar Rava answers, Shmoina al Shmoina Ike Benayu. No, the difference is 8 by 8 amos is the difference between them. According to the Tanakama, he has 8 amos by 8 amos. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, he will only have arba amos, meaning arba by arba. Tanya mihochi. And we have a brisa also that supports this. Yesh lo shmoina al shmoina di Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir, which is the opinion of the Tanakama, says you have 8 amos. So wherever you are, you'll have 8 amos, 4 amos in all directions. Whereas according to Rabbi Yehuda, he'll only have 2 amos. Meaning to say, he'll begin, unlike Rabbi Eliezer, says he's in the middle and he has 2 amos in every direction. He says wherever you begin, you'll have 4 amos. But it'll be the same opinion as Rabbi Eliezer, that he only has 4 amos, and not like the Tanakama has shmona amos. V'Rava said, machlokes lahalach. You have to know this machlokes between the Tanakama and Rabbi Eliezer / Rabbi Yehuda, whether you have 8 amos or 4 amos, that's only in regards to walking, in regards to techum. Aval letaltil divrei hakol arba amos in tfeiloi. But everybody agrees in regards to them being metaltil, an object, that you only have daled amos. In the Rishus Harabim, you can't go beyond daled amos. That would be a malach of hoitzah, to be making a movement, a tiltul of daled amos in the Rishus Harabim. Would be chayiv chatos if he does it b'mezi, b'shoigeg. Vahani daled amos heichiksiv. Now the Gemara asks, this daled amos that we're talking about, where is it written? What's the source for this? Kidetanya, the Gemara brings the following pasuk in this brisa: Shavu ish tachtov. The pasuk says in regards to the man that you shall then shavu, you shall remain, you should sit, each person in his place. And the pasuk goes on to say, Al yetze ish mimakaymoi. A person should not go out from his place. Bayom Hashvi, on the 7th day. Kitachtov. The The Brisa makes a drasha. When it says in his place, it means underneath him. And therefore, what is underneath him? Dalar Amos. As the Brisa explains, V'kama tachtov, gufa sheloish amos. His body is measured as gimel amos. V'ama, and he needs an additional amma, kidei lifsho yodav v'raglov, in order to then spread out his arms and his legs, an additional amma, in total 4 amos. Div Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, gufoi shalosh amos, his body indeed is 3 amos. Ve'ama kidei sheyito chayfetz mitachas margaloisov umeniach tachas merashoisov. But he needs an additional amma to take an object from beneath his feet to put it underneath his head. And therefore, again, a total of 4 amos. Ask the Gemara, my beinaihu. They both come to the conclusion of Dalad amos. Ika beinayu 4 amos mitzum tzomos. The difference would be if it's 4 amos that are exact mitzum tzomos. And that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who's more machmir. Omar le Rab Mishasha lebrei. Marshasha asked his son, Ki ailis lekamei de Rab Papa. Boy mine, when you come before Rab Papa, ask him the following question. 4 amos, these are the amos that we're talking about. She'omru ba'ama didei yahavinale. Is it the amma according to the individual himself? In other words, do we measure based on his arms, but you go from the elbow to the end of the middle finger, according to the person's size, his own arm, and that's how we measure the amma, to get to the 4 amos? Or, he says, or perhaps, maybe we get it, ba'ama shel kodesh yavinale. We take the standard measurement of the amma that was in the Beis HaMikdash, which is really 6 tfachim. So 6 tfachim times the 4 amos will give us 24 tfachim. And therefore it will be a standard measurement. Im amar loch amo shel kodesh yavinale. If you're going to tell us this is a standard measurement of 24 tfachim, what would be a giant, a very large person? How is he going to fit in that area? It's too small for him. If you're going to say it's based on that specific person's amma, between, again, the measurement between his elbow and the end of his middle finger, then it should say, my time say to Rav Papa, my time why doesn't it teach in the Mishnah in Kalim, where it states over there various situations, various measurements rather, that are according to the person's size? For example, when it comes to Yom HaKippurim, there's an Iser Shtia. How do we measure the Iser Shtia? That measurement that's going to be Chayev Kores for a person who drinks on Yom HaKippurim, that measurement is based on a Malol Lugmav, on the cheekful. And that's based on that individual person's, his size of his cheek. So therefore, if you have a small person who has a small cheek, it'll be based on his cheek. Whereas a larger person, he'll have a bigger shiur for the shtia on Yom HaKippurim. So why wouldn't it say over here in that Mishnah as well that the amount of the amma is going to be measured according to his size, if indeed we're going to say it's individual based? When he came before Rav Papa, so Omar Rav Papa responded, if we would then be precise in all of the various questions throughout Shas, then we won't be able to teach anything. And therefore he says, I'll still teach you nonetheless over here to your question. I'll tell you, we will give the measurement of the amma based on his own personal amma. You asked me, then why isn't it stated in the Mishnah with the other things that are based on a person's personal measurement, his personal size? I'll tell you the reason is because the lo psikale, because not absolute. Why? Mishum di'ike nanas beivar. There are people, individuals, who are tall, they have a regular height, but their limbs are dwarfed. And therefore, if you go based on the measurement of his, between the elbow and his finger, the end of his middle finger, then it'll come out to be a small measurement and he will never fit in that size. Therefore, the Mishnah over there could not have taught such a case. The Mishnah over there teaches all the situations where it's going to be then standard and therefore absolute. So therefore it's not going to be a kasha, but the answer to the question in regards to the amma, the 4 ammas that we're talking about, is indeed measured according to a person's own amma.